What are corporate secrets you can reveal? Viewers Edition.
Story 1. I worked at a family-owned restaurant that also had a bar in a separate building just 10 feet away. The place is in the middle of nowhere, but I was happy to have my first job as a cook in their restaurant. I was surprised at the amount of unsafe things they do because they rarely get checked by an inspector, but my God, the floors in the kitchen were so greasy I fell twice while working there, and the waitress fell several times in a month as well. So almost everyone stayed out of the kitchen except for me and the head cook. The head cook talked with a very hard to understand southern drawl, and I had just moved from New England to this southern state after graduating high school, so I was eager to try my best. He had more bad days than good days, quietly repeating angrily what he said, since I often didn't understand what he said, so as to not upset the people eating out in the restaurant. But he did teach me a lot, and I looked up to him as a teacher. The owner of the place was the dad of the family, but the mom ran the restaurant, and their son would often just show up for free food. Some nights I would deliver hot wings from the restaurant to the bar, and one night I had to play waiter for the dad as he had a game night with his friends in this secret room behind the bar. It was crazy, like a movie. They were sitting at a poker table with one light over it. A couple of girls were sitting on a couch in the corner smoking a joint while he and his friends smoked cigars talking about massive amounts of money they were gambling on this game. All the while, I'm in the corner waiting for what he wants me to do next. Eventually, one of the friends wins the first game, then they play a second, and one of the friends drops a small bag of weed on the table as his gamble. The dad wins the game and takes the money in the bag. They all get up to leave, and I begin cleaning the floor and resetting the chairs in the corner. The dad then heads over to the restaurant with me following behind with the dishes and gives the head cook the bag. The head cook stops me halfway through washing dishes and says, "Follow me, gotta show you something." At this point I'm nervous because I didn't want to smoke anything, but kept the thought to myself and walked with him. He took a truckload of boxes we had cut up earlier around the backside of the bar and started a fire, throwing in the boxes. Then he looked at me, held up the bag of weed, and threw it into the fire. He said, "If you want a good job someday, you stay away from this crap." He then drove home in the truck. I quit that job a month later, worked at a Sonic for a while, then worked at a hospital kitchen for 2 years, got my first job in manufacturing, worked that for 3 years, and became a team leader and rework specialist. Now I work a different job as an operator on a corrugated digital printer for a box company. I still think about that night, how if I continued working at that job, if eventually the owner would have been giving that bag to me, and what I would have been doing with it. I would have still been living with my parents. I would be driving the same crap box car. I would still be making $11 an hour. Crazy how just a few words can shape up a person's code of life. Look, I make no secret about the fact that I am very supportive of recreational use of the electric cabbage. However, it's not something that you should be taking for payment from a boss, and that a boss should be like gambling on at their job and all that stuff. Like, that is not the place for that kind of stuff. And if your place of work is trying to do that, then, I mean, not great. So good for you for getting out of there and finding yourself a, much better job, all that kind of stuff. And for the rest of you, pretty good lesson to learn.
Story 2. I was a manager at Petco, the CAL, with a heavy focus on aquatics. Here's a little something for you. Because of how the systems are set up, the medications they use, and because of how their policies work for dealing with sick or infected fish, everything there is sick or carrying something. You'll never get a healthy fish from them unless you get there on delivery day and buy the vendor bag, and even that is iffy. There is no quarantining new arrivals. They go in with everything else, and you're only allowed to shut down a tank once an illness is noticeable in the tank, and by that time, the whole stack has it. You're only allowed to shut down individual tanks for treatment. Shutting down a whole stack requires regional approval. And good luck if you have a bunch of tanks shut down and they come on one of their visits. I always have tanks shut down and frequently shut down stacks because I'm not going to willingly screw over customers. Our saltwater section was never remotely healthy. One bad order from Segrest or the lack of any real medications to get rid of diseases, and that was it. I fought with those systems for years and never made any headway because I was totally hamstrung by company policy. The freshwater stuff isn't any better. If you're an aquatic husbandry enthusiast, you probably should already know this, but always have a quarantine tank at home. Quarantine, observe, and treat any new fish you buy for 6 weeks before putting them with your other fish. It saves a ton of headaches and money if you're buying more expensive fish. We also had the policy of railroading a problem employee instead of firing them in hopes of making them quit. I wouldn't participate in that because it's been done to me several times due to me being autistic. 100% about pet handling too. It's actually in the policy you're supposed to do that, but there is never time for it when you're chronically understaffed and don't have the hours to put towards it. FYI, gerbils and other such rodents make awful child pets. I know that's how they're seen, but those little bastards are ferocious and easily leave scars.
Well, I guess I feel somewhat better about the fact that I think the one that we go to is PetSmart. Is that one better? God, I hope so. Probably not. Oh, man. Big chains being in charge of the lives of pets and animals. It hurts me. It hurts me deep down a little bit. So, hey, folks, whatever you do, take care of your pets and maybe avoid, this stuff. I don't even know how you do it in some places, but do your best.
Story 3. In my country, we have a very specific working rights, and I'm actually glad I don't work in the US because we are heavily protected by the law here in Brazil. My first job was as an ESL, English Second Language teacher, in a private school. I was hired mainly because my mom had worked there as an ESL teacher there, and I graduated in ESL and got a Cambridge certificate there. No experience with teaching, and I was literally studying arts in college at that time. I had quite a great time. I loved my students, and I obviously wasn't a perfect teacher, but I saw my students evolve, and I got really proud. Every day, my boyfriend at the time, who was also a teacher at another school, would pick me up or wait with me until my mom picked me up so I wouldn't be alone. Once the semester was done, I was told my boyfriend could not wait with me anymore because it wasn't appropriate, even though I avoided physical contact because, children are there, and I was poorly trained, with no training at all. From 24 students and about just 400 Brazilian real per month, they took my classes from me and gave me one with 3 students. I would earn, luckily, 200 Brazilian real per month. The manager, first time managing and little teaching experience, literally said to me I just wasn't fired because she knew it was an issue with the training I had received. That absolutely broke me. I quit the same day, and when telling the story to my mom and boyfriend, both agreed it was a forced quit, where they forced me to quit and lose all my working rights, get paid absolutely nothing for the unemployment, and get rid of me. Apparently quite common in the teaching area here. My mom loved that school, and now all of us hate that place for forcing me to quit. Story 4. Former Walmart stalker here. A few secrets. 1. Fire exits were constantly blocked with merchandise and only emptied if an inspection was expected. 2. A lot of the older female cashiers, door greeters, and the like you saw for the longest time were women who hardly had a cent to their name who needed to work to support themselves. Some often worked until either they couldn't anymore due to advanced age or illness, or they simply died. 3. A significant number of younger female employees in the mid to late 2000s, to my discovery, were quite the wily ones. They could be highly perverted and or very touchy-feely. I've known at least 2 who were very eager, since they got to know me for one, to get belly rubs when they were pregnant. 3. Social cliques among management and associates existed. They would cover each other's backs, but if you weren't in it, you couldn't get away with anything. 4. The facility that I worked at had a D-Day veteran as a door greeter. He did that job until he died because he believed it was the last thing he could do to serve his country. Rest in peace, Vince. You will be missed. 5. Many females were passed up for promotion for whatever reason. Also, some female managers were known for risque behavior in the office behind closed doors and favoring male associates over other women. Story 5. Also, I can attest that the cameras at Target are certainly real, or used to be. When I was 15, my best friend and I would go in and steal CDs a few at a time. They didn't have those huge plastic things on them, just the cellophane, but a security tag inside the case. So we'd walk the store, go into an empty aisle, rip the wrapping off, take the CD out of the case, and put them in big pockets. Then hide the rest of the evidence behind a bunch of stuff. After a few weeks, I got clipped. I even got pretty severely manhandled by a guy much bigger than me, slammed me against the end cap of the aisle, and took me to the security room. He took his job very seriously and reviewed the video footage to see what we looked like, waited for us to come back, then watched the camera until we hit the CD aisle. Waited about 2 minutes, then came running across the store. I got taken into the security room where I saw all the screens, and he called the police. He turned out to be the husband of my favorite teacher from middle school, but that didn't help at all. He pressed charges on behalf of Target, and I was banned forever. I go back to Target plenty now. That was 18 years ago. Luckily, my neighbor was a preacher who knew some people and got rid of the charges for me. But yeah, the moral of the story is their cameras definitely worked great at one point.
I've grew up hearing those rumors like, oh, you see like those like bulb things up there that are supposed to look like cameras. They're not even connected. They're just there to deter people. And I was always like, I think they might be connected because, fun fact, cameras aren't that expensive. For like all the costs that, Target or Walmart or whatever is pouring into the construction of their store, some cheapo little security cameras that they got and like the storage space for them and stuff, especially these days, it's a tiny fraction. So yeah, they work. Now, how competent the people are who are watching those cameras, I don't know.
Story 6. I worked at a chain jewelry store for a while. At my company, all staff get minimum wage plus possible commission. The trick with commission is that both the individual salesperson and the branch need to meet sales targets for the month in order to earn commissions. Also, all staff have a list of maximum discounts for each type of item. For example, silver jewelry without gemstone max 20%, with a gemstone max 15%, etc. Only the actual sales amount counts towards sales targets, not the list price. Commission percent is capped at the available percentage after discount. For example, if you sell enough to unlock a 5% commission, but you give someone an 18% discount on something that is maxed 20%, then your commission on that item is 2%. All of this means that the likelihood you can talk the employee into a discount depends not only on personality, but also how late it is in the month, how good their sales have been that month, and how good the employee is at doing math. When they go to the back room, it isn't to look up the numbers. It's to calculate whether your discount will help them or not. This also means that you can potentially get better or worse discounts depending on which salesperson you're talking to. Story 7. I worked at Red Lobster a few years ago, and I don't know if it was because of the timing or location, but not many of the things I cooked there were microwaved. Some premium sides were microwaved to defrost them before we broiled them, though. Maybe it was because that location in particular was an experimental location where they tested new dishes before making them widely available. Almost everything was frozen and prepackaged except the salmon and obviously the live lobsters. If your food was taking longer than usual, it's probably because the most annoying thing about it was if you showed to be capable of handling multiple jobs because an employee called off last minute, management would expect you to continue to work multiple jobs. After a year of working there, I was expected to operate a 5-man kitchen by myself 8 a.m. to 2 a.m., then do it all over again. Looking back, I let it happen because I had something to prove to myself as a dumb teen, but that probably shouldn't have been allowed regardless. On a lighter note, you were allowed to buy a live lobster at a 25% discount to do whatever you want, so my boy Larry the Lobster has been with me ever since. Story 8. I worked at Home Depot last year before I quit due to college and not being paid enough, and let me tell you how they throw away thousands of dollars worth of merchandise. Before I quit, they made me throw a perfectly fine $800 pressure washer down the trash compactor, all because someone returned it and the store manager couldn't be bothered to ZMA it, return to manufacturer for credit. Also, I worked in the lumber section and we had perfectly good pieces of wood being thrown away all because of some very slight warps or bends that could easily be straightened out with fasteners. In total, I think they forced me to throw away about $10,000 worth of perfectly good materials, and as an employee, I was not allowed to save anything, no matter if it was in good condition or not. All in all, Home Depot is a wasteful company that pays and treats its employees like crap. I was making $14 an hour as a part-time, while the other guy who'd been there for 10 years only makes $12 an hour. It's horrible, and I do not recommend it.
Mr. Fact bonus story! Because guess what? I know it happens to a lot of the stuff that Home Depot does away with. So Home Depot's, if, a product is damaged, if it goes on clearance and it doesn't sell, if it is a return, or if it's considered broken or something like that. Some stores might destroy it or whatever. Sure. A lot of stores ship them off to massive warehouses. There are warehouses filled with this crap. And maybe I once worked for a small little startup business. Well, not that small. The owner was a millionaire, but a business in Minnesota where we bought just random truckloads of that stuff from Home Depot. We wouldn't get to see what it is. We wouldn't get to judge the quality. They would just fill it up with pallets from these warehouses of clearanced and damaged and unsold items and all that stuff. And we would sell it typically for a huge discount, like 40% or more off of what Home Depot charged. And, we had to, sort through it and throw away stuff that was broken or whatever. But it was a really good business model. The store took off. It was great until it tried to start upping the prices and doing its own things and tried to become its own just normal hardware store and furniture store. And last I heard, it has mostly failed. And I'm not sad because of how they treated some of the workers shortly after I left. But interesting fact. There are just warehouses full of crap that's perfectly good. And well, we were buying it for a while, and now I don't know what's happening to it.
Story 9. I worked for Walmart for years, and a friend of the family is married to a higher up in the company. She confirmed my suspicion that if management ever tries to tell you you're not meeting the work pace, output, etc. that's expected of you, they'll try to tell you they did company research on the average worker output that will always suspiciously be more than whatever you can. In Walmart's case, they did the research, but she revealed that it was done in-house without a non-biased third party. So they ignored the results they didn't want and lied to get you to work harder because of these imaginary statistics of how much harder you should be working. 2 jobs later, they pull the same crap but couldn't even muster the effort to lie about the research. So yeah, if your employer tells you you're not meeting standards, you demand to see the data of what even is the standard. I guarantee 9 out of 10 they'll refuse to show you because that info doesn't exist. Story 10. This is going to be kind of vague because I don't want to provide instructions on manufacturing dangerous substances. I worked at a local plant nursery for about a month when I was barely 18. On a particularly slow day, I walked into the retail space from the back door and found the owner teaching another employee how to make a certain narcotic substance from poppies he had received in a shipment. He was actively going through the process as he described it, and when he was done, he handed the plant to the other employee and told them to hide it in the back because allegedly the police would be able to take action just from seeing the plant in the state it was in after the store owner had processed it. I had already put up with some BS at that job, but at that moment I knew I had to go. Story 11. About Lego. I can verify. I never worked for Lego, but I had a gig acting in murder mysteries at corporate parties. It involved a lot of interaction with the client employees, role-playing and party game stuff, and I never saw a company where the employees genuinely enjoyed hanging out with each other so much. I got the feeling every one of them loved Legos as a kid and had landed their dream job. And for some reason, corporations didn't abuse that dream. I wonder if it's because Lego is based in Denmark where workers have rights.
Okay, seriously, if you haven't watched the original video and now this, the comments about working for Lego, apparently that must be a great place to work. I kind of want to work for Lego. Hey Lego, do you need a schmuck who who can stand in front of a camera or in front of a mic and just say stuff that some people care about, I guess, maybe? What would you call that job? Call me.
Story 12. Used to work in a tech support call center. Calls were actually recorded for QA, but nobody ever listened to the recordings unless the customer left a bad rating on a survey they'd received later. If a call went well and the customer forgot to hang up or the call didn't disconnect, my coworkers and I would leave the line open. As far as management was concerned, we were just dealing with a long call. In reality, we were just taking a break because the second one call ends, the next one immediately comes through. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.